The double Z spring or recurved spring. The double Z is a combination of two Z springs joined at the anterior region to form one long active arm. The properties and activation are similar to those of the Z spring. So the components are one long active arm, two small connecting arms, two small distal arms, and two retentive arms that are kept parallel with the palatal midline. It has 4 coils, equal in dimension, 2 outer coils located at the mesiodistal extension of the teeth need to be moved, and 2 inner coils located in the middle of the spring. The outer coils are bent above the active arm. The inner coils are bent below the first coils to keep the spring in one plane. So to construct this spring, we should mark the distal contact point of 2 central incisors. Then from the distal aspect of each incisor, we will mark the position of the outer coil that will be connected by one large active arm. Then we have 2 small connecting arms. These are connecting arms, one on each side. At the end, we will bend the second coil below the first coil. These coils should be separated from each other by 0.5 to 1 millimeter, the distance between these two coils. Then we have small distal arms. At the middle of each corresponding tooth, a bend will be made in the wire to direct it in a palatal direction. Then we will make the zigzag bend in the retentive arm that should be kept parallel with the palatal midline. Start by taking 15 centimeters of 0.5 stainless steel wire. First, you straighten the wire as usual. Now I will mark the position of the 2 outer coils at the distal aspect of the left central incisor to make the first coil. It's important you work at the very end of the beak of the plier to keep the coil small. The first coil should be bent above the active arm. So I will move the wire or pass the wire above the active arm, as you can see. It's important to keep the coil as tight as possible. So this is the first outer coil. The wire now is directed mesially. Now I will mark the position of the second outer coil, corresponding to the distal aspect of the right maxillary central incisor. I will hold the wire just before the mark. At the same position I used to make the first outer coil, to ensure that both coils will be of same diameter. Also, it will be bent above the active arm. You should always make sure that you are working in the same plane. We'll keep turning the wire until it is directed mesially again. Both coils are in the same plane. Now I will mark the position of the inner coils. It will be at the midline of the combined mesiodistal width of two central incisors. The second coil, the two inner coils will be bent below the first coil to keep the spring in one plane. It's important I will hold the wire about 0.5 to 1 millimeter from the mark. So the inner coils will eventually be separated from each other and not contacting or overlapping each other. So the second coil will be bent below, as you can see, below the first coil. So it is below. I will complete turning the wire until it is directed distally. So this is the second or the first inner coil. Now I will mark the position of the other inner coil or the second inner coil, also in the midline. Also about 0.5 to 1 millimeter away from the midline, and start bending the wire or the coil below the first one or the outer coil. So I will move the wire below the first coil, as you can see. Keeping the coil as tight as possible. Now the wire is directed distally again. There are four coils, two outer and two inner. All are equal in dimension and located in the same plane. Now I need to direct the wire in a palatal direction. So at the middle of each corresponding tooth, I will put a mark and make 90-degree bend on the round beak of the plier to direct the wire palatally. So now the wire is directed palatally, and we have this small distal arm. The same for the other side. also on the round beak of the plier. Make sure the spring in the same plane and make your right angle bend. Now I'll start making the zigzag, or before I can make the wire or the spring perpendicular to the tooth surface or to the long axis of the tooth. The same for the other side. I will check it again after I make the zigzag. Now I will mark about 5 or 4 millimeters of the wire to start making my 2 or 3 zigzag bends. Now the spring is loose, needs to be squeezed. We hold the inner coils and squeezing them. Squeezing the distal arms as well. Now the spring is squeezed.